I've been thinking a lot lately about money and not in that stressful panic kind of way, but more like how interesting it is that the older I get, the more I realize that frugality, which used to feel like this boring, restrictive word, is actually kind of freeing, like a quiet superpower. And it ties so naturally into minimalism in ways I honestly didn't expect when I first started simplifying my life. And I'm not talking about the don't ever buy coffee again frugal tips. I mean the deeper stuff, the mindset level stuff, the kind of saving that feels less like depriving yourself and more like returning to what actually matters. So I thought today we could just sit with this topic and maybe you'll hear something that resonates with where you're at in your own minimalist journey. What frugality really means to me. So, this might sound weird, but I don't think of myself as a frugal person, at least not in the traditional sense. I don't use coupons very often. I'm not tracking every penny in a spreadsheet, and I'm not out here, sewing my own socks. But what I have learned, especially through minimalism, is that frugality is more of a habit of attention than a habit of restriction. Like paying attention to what I actually enjoy spending money on versus what I do because of habit or social pressure. And I remember this moment, this was years ago, where I bought this random kitchen gadget and I don't remember what it was, probably some avocado shaped thing that claimed to do five jobs. And I brought it home, used it once, and then it sat in a drawer. And every time I opened that drawer, I'd see it and feel this tiny annoying pinch like, well, there goes $12 that you spent for no reason. And then one day I just thought, if I don't like the feeling of wasting money, why do I keep doing it? And that was the first time frugality made sense to me, not as punishment, but as clarity. Minimalism helps you avoid phantom spending. Phantom spending is what I call the stuff we buy because we're not really conscious. You know the subscriptions you forgot you signed up for, the hobby supplies for the hobby you swear you were going to start, the little, treat yourself purchases that somehow don't feel like treats at all. Minimalism for me slows everything down enough that I actually don't notice those patterns. Sometimes I'll do this thing where I stand in a store, it could be Target, it could be online late at night, and I hold the item in my hand or in my cart and I just pause. I'll tell myself, let's imagine future me dealing with this thing. Future me, though, is the real MVP because future me is the one who has to store it, clean it, find space for it, feel guilty about it, repair it, and eventually get rid of it, maybe sell it. And 9 times out of 10, when I actually picture that, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. I close that tab or I just, walk away. And that pause has saved me so much money without even trying. Frugal minimalism isn't about cheap, it's about right sizing. One of the biggest misconceptions is that frugality means buying the cheapest version of something, and that has never worked for me. I always used to buy some cheap shoes, the $50 ones that technically look fine, and I know I'm just gonna upgrade and get something else once they're bad, but every single time they fall apart within months, and I'd go buy another pair. And I justify, well, hey, they're only $50. But after a while, I realized I wasn't really saving anything. And if I just, instead of spending $50 on 4 different pairs, a year, what if I just bought a really nice $150 pair that would last for years and I could shine the leather and make them keep working for me? And so now I think that frugal minimalism is, the right sizing of, right size your purchases, right size your home, your expectations, right size your lifestyle. Buying fewer things, but buying better things if I'm going to keep them, at least long term. And it's like creating this curated personal inventory, things that you actually use, things that you generally support the life that you want. The power of delayed decisions. Something I've started doing is what I call the 48-hour moment. I don't really have a technical name, but if I want something, like I can really feel that, I wanted energy. I don't shut it down immediately. I'll just say, okay, let's sit with it. Let's ponder the idea for a bit. And if after 48 hours, and sometimes it's a week or two, I still genuinely want it, then great. There's a good chance it's aligned with what I value. And what's amazing is how many things lose all their charm once I'm a few days removed from the impulse. I remember once when I was absolutely convinced I needed this fancy high-tech air fryer and made like 12 settings and a screen and probably could launch a small rocket. And I kept thinking of all the things I'd make and, the usual fantasy version of ourselves. But I waited. And in that quiet waiting space, I had this moment of honesty where I was like, okay, you barely used the Instant Pot you already said you would always use for all these meals and these recipes, right? And I saved that $300 not getting that air fryer. And that was just with one pause. Frugality that doesn't feel like frugality. Some of the ways I save money now, they don't even feel like money saving habits. They are more like, ways of living simply, and money just happens to stay in my pocket as a side effect. A few examples: enjoying what I already have instead of constantly upgrading. I used to think that my phone needed to be a new model every year, and now I'm like, does it turn on? Does it text? Great, that's enough. It's tough because I'm a little bit of an Apple geek, but you know, do I need a new one every year? Probably not. Same thing with cooking simple meals. I don't need Instagram worthy 5-step marinades, foods. I just need foods that are easy and good and don't require me to buy 12 ingredients that I'm only going to have to use once. Another one is, doing no spend days, and that kind of happens naturally. I don't plan them. They just happen because my life isn't structured around shopping anymore. And, another one, cleaning out my space every few months. This kind of resets my brain. When my home is uncluttered, I don't feel that subtle itch to buy more. My space already feels full in the ways that matter. Emotional spending and what minimalism revealed. This part is uncomfortable but important. A lot of my unnecessary spending used to come from emotion or boredom, stress, wanting to feel a little spark of excitement, or even wanting to feel productive by buying things related to goals I hadn't actually started yet. Minimalism helped me recognize those feelings before they turned into purchases. Because once your physical environment gets simpler, your emotional environment gets louder, and you start realizing how often you're chasing a feeling, not an item. And I've caught myself many times saying, I don't want the thing, I want the feeling the thing promises. And when you see you see that clearly, saving money starts to feel a little bit more automatic. My favorite practical, non-extreme tips. Here are a few things that genuinely help me, and they're not extreme or rigid. Keep a things I thought I needed list. Write down things you almost bought but didn't. It becomes really funny after a month. It also reminds you how temporary most of those desires are. Invert the question. Instead of, should I buy this? Ask, would my life be noticeably worse without it? Or maybe create a 5-item wish list rule. For example, I don't let my wish list get longer than 5 things. And if I want to add something new, something else has to get deleted, and it forces clarity. Or maybe add friction to spending. So turn off autofill on your tablet, delete saved credit cards, remove apps, unsubscribe from emails sending you these offers. Give yourself just enough friction to pause and think. What frugal minimalism gives back? What I've noticed, maybe the most surprising thing, is that frugality actually gives me more than it takes away. It gives me, more space, more clarity, more peace in my home, more breathing room in my budget, more gratitude for what I already have, more energy to put toward the things that actually matter to me. Minimalism and frugality together create this soft, steady rhythm, a kind of quiet contentment. And it's not about being perfect. I still buy dumb things sometimes. I still overspend occasionally, but now I notice it. I correct it sooner, and I forgive myself for it, because this is just a journey, not a performance. A simpler, richer life. So if you're in a place where you want to save more money or live more simply, or maybe both, try approaching it not as a discipline, but as a curiosity. Ask yourself, what would my life look like with fewer but better things? What would my days feel like if I wasn't always wanting more? What does enough actually feel like for me? Frugality isn't the goal. Minimalism isn't the goal. They're just tools. Great ones, I think, to help you shape a life that feels honest, calm, and grounded. And if you're listening to this, I think you're already on that path in your own way. We all are. So thanks for watching. I hope this helped, and I'll see you on the next one.